Next In.
Welcome to Next In. We got March 9th, so spring is sprung. It's beautiful here. Well, no, I guess it's rainy, but it's nice here in Nashville. Scott, where are you at?
I live in Boulder, Colorado. It's snowing right now.
Oh boy, but it'll probably be 80 or 70 tomorrow, melt the snow, and then snow again, and then melt the snow. Isn't that kind of
It's supposed to
the
be
Denver way?
60 this weekend, so yeah, we'll get
That's
a
awesome.
major snow.
That is awesome. Well, we are joined today with Scott Williamson, who is make sure I get it right, CPO of GitLab.
Correct.
So, Scott, thank you for joining us. I got co-host Shane Chown. Please do me a favor before we even get into it. Subscribe, like, do whatever. Hit the buttons on the YouTube thing that you guys do. So, so let's kind of get into it. Again, we have CPO from GitLab, which is a pretty huge company. So we are very, very honored to have you with us today. And I'm sure our millions of rabid fans are excited to hear what you have to say. But so Scott, you're in the product space. We talk to engineers, we talk to product people, sometimes in the HR space too. So, but tell us a little bit about your journey to get to where you're at. You're a CPO now, but obviously you didn't start there, and you have a pretty cool, different background than some of the people we've talked to. So tell us, how'd you get to where you're at?
Yeah, it's been a circuitous journey to product leadership. I grew up in a small town in Kansas and had a business undergrad at the University of Kansas, and just didn't really know at that point what I wanted to do with my career. So it's not like I set out to get into tech or product even. Eventually moved to the Bay Area in my early 20s. A friend talked me into it, moved out there with very little reason to do so. I hadn't even been to the Bay Area, but decided to take a chance. Moved out and sort of stumbled into technology. My first job was in sales at a software company that sells stock plan administration software. And this was the late 90s when internet boom, web boom, lots of hot private companies. And so it actually was a great product, the right product at the right time. Still exists. I still use it. It's the back end of E-Trade's stock plan administration system. Anyway, long story short, had a good run there for 4 years in sales. But while I was there, I really came to admire the product management function. I liked what that team was doing. I thought it was intellectually interesting to me. But the leap from sales to product management is a big one.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of because we've talked to people who've gone kind of engineering to sales. Your route is a little bit different, engineering to product. Your route from the sales to product space, again, it happens in a certain percentage of people. How did that transpire?
Well, it took a long time. It took 7 or 8 years from when I decided that I was interested in product to actually being able to break into it for a variety of reasons. One, the skill sets that you develop in sales have some applicability to product, but I don't think most hiring managers think it's a direct hit. So I even applied for a role at the company I was at, and even though they liked me, it wasn't enough to get in the team. So I had a boss who's a Stanford grad who talked through what I wanted to do with my career and recommended that I go to grad school and position myself with the curriculum there to break into product management. So that's the path I chose. I ended up going to the Haas School of Business at Cal, which was great because I already lived in the Bay Area, and specialized in management of technology. And the whole time was taking classes that I thought would help me in a product role. So that helped. But when I came out, when I graduated in 2003, the market had tanked. It was the
.com bust, right?
Hadn't really climbed out of the bust yet, and so there were a bunch of trained product managers on the street. And I couldn't find the kind of job that I would have expected coming out of a top MBA program. So I decided to work for a company that I thought had potential in a role that was close to product management in hopes that I could bridge, and that I ended up working. It was a company called Wiley Technology in the application performance monitoring space. And I took a job in alliances. So I was working with big tech companies like IBM and Microsoft and BEA to make sure our product worked well with theirs because we were sitting on top of their application servers. And it worked. I ended up working a lot with the product leadership team, and eventually they came to trust me. And when a senior PM role opened up, I was able to break in. So long time, took a lot of patience, but in the end,
so I'm kind of curious. So you ended up going from sales, went out and got your MBA, ended up doing the strategic alliance bit for a while. What there do you believe allowed that transition to happen? So it looks like even Wiley maybe got acquired by CA Technologies, and then that transition finally happened. So you went from like no product to principal product, which I'll say is a pretty fat leap from, it wasn't even like you got into an entry level product role. It was like, hey, I got into a director role dealing with strategic alliances. Like what happened there? Like what was the synergy that happened between getting your MBA, going into this alliance kind of field to bridging that gap that allowed you to finally make that transition?
Yeah, I think the things that I did in the lead up to product actually ended up helping me be a better product leader and a differentiated product leader. Because as you mentioned before, most product leaders come up through a tech background. They tend to see the world a certain way. When I think about product, I very quickly think about the customer. I think about how's sales going to sell this? How's marketing going to pitch this? Does this meet a customer's need? That's not necessarily intuitive for people who come up through a tech background where they're more about building stuff. And so I think that differentiated me very quickly once I got into the role because I was thinking like that. And I think management appreciated that. And so I got into a product leadership role after only 2 years as an IC. Because I had a broad background, I was pretty senior by then. I was, early 30s by then. And so a combination of having a broad base of experience plus this customer focus, I think, helped me get into it and helped me succeed once I got there.
So if your early 30s is pretty senior, that must make me like geriatric.
So I guess for anybody that's trying to get into product, right, and somebody that's coming from a sales background, I would naturally assume that's very similar to like even somebody from like a marketing background, right? What would you naturally assume are the things that you would give that type of person? Like what kind of advice would you give that person? Again, more of like the marketing or sales background, because to your point, like we've had people that have come in from their MBAs, they're an analyst, they did the normal capital investments or venture capital route before getting into product. We've talked to people that have done the engineering route. Haven't talked to a lot of people in the sales route yet.
I think you have to demonstrate to a product leader, the hiring manager, that you're serious about it. I think a lot of people throw on, oh yeah, I want to join product. A lot of people think that. It's actually a really hard job and not everybody's cut out for it. You have to make a lot of decisions and you have to be a great communicator and you have to be diplomatic, and there's a lot of things that not everyone has naturally. So you have to prove to that hiring manager that you are serious about that career leap and it's not just some idea you had. So one way is to get a job closer to the product team. So maybe move into sales engineering or be the person in sales who's the lead to work with the product leader to talk about priorities and such. There are ways that you can partner with the product team and demonstrate that you're really serious about bridging over. These days, there's a lot more product management courses. Reforge is coming out with product content. There's product school. There's quite a few of these, multi-week, fairly in-depth product management training courses, which you can take, which wasn't available 15 years ago.
No. Yeah.
That's something you could do. And then you can also just demonstrate the skills on your own. Go build a mobile app or go validate your idea with customers and then turn it into something and document it so that a hiring manager can see that you're doing the work of product management for your own benefit or for your own side business.
So that could that also be somebody that's like, hey, I really want to get involved with the product marketing section of the business, where it's just like maybe helping with the sales enablement training, helping do X, Y, and Z, doing something where it's like, hey, we're helping on a different avenue rather than just sales. So 20% of my time can be contributed toward this other function that helps everyone all together, but still starts to bleed into product.
Yep. Yeah. Maybe try to. There's we occasionally have product management internships at GitLab. We've had people from various functions kind of ride along with the PM for 2 or 3 months.
Yep.
Those are possible if everyone's creative about it. So the closer you can get to the function, and the more that you can demonstrate you've flexed those muscles, the easier it will be to believe for a hiring manager that you're cut out for it.
Do you think that like an MBA is a requirement? Like, do you think that, hey, like as a prerequisite, you should get an MBA to get into product?
No, it can be helpful. I think if you want to move into product leadership, you want to be a VP, C-level, etc., it can really help, because at that point, it's a very broad job. It's not just functional. You got to help run the business. And
It's very strategic at that point too, right?
Yeah. And if you get into a top school, it can be a tiebreaker between you and someone else. There's a certain amount of pedigree that comes with getting into having the qualifications to get into a top one is it's a funnel narrower. And so I think for those two reasons, it can really help. But if your passion is the actual product management work, and you're less concerned about moving really high in the org, I don't think it's necessary. I've seen tons of great PMs who don't have an MBA. What I will say is you need a business mind. I think PMs.
Totally agree with that. We obviously we're a recruiting agency and we do engineers, but we do a lot of product. And for us, we're very specific when we get to the product, which recruiters, I even will sometimes work on the product side, because it's this, I think it's the coolest domain. It is this perfect in between of like business function, technical function, and right in the middle of it, you have this, got to have both, but you have to have a business mind. You can't be strictly technical. If you have that, I think you will fail in the product space. You have to be able to think through. So when we're recruiting, we have a very targeted product map that we go through with people to make sure that they really can pinpoint the business impact of their product and how their team impacted it from a business side, not just what did the product do.
Yeah.
Right.
Well said.
So
we have 4 buckets, if you will, that we look for when we hire a PM. One is validation skills. So do they think customer first? Are they humble enough to believe that I may not have the answer? I may need to go talk to the target user before deciding what to do. And can they go run a productive interview with a customer? That's 1. 2, can they work with engineering and make trade-offs and go as deep technically as you need to go for that particular role? Some roles really need a deep technical grounding. 3rd is business skills, which you covered nicely. And then 4 is communication skills, because you have to, one minute you're talking to the CEO and the next minute you're talking to your engineering team, and those are very different conversations. So those are the 4 things that's how I've synthesized what we need out of a PM.
I think that's such a good little snippet. Like I'm actually like, we need to clip that and be like, okay, good, perfect. Everyone who wants to get into product should just hear that minute and go, all right, which one of those 4 is my strength? Which one of those 4 is my weakness? And to your point, how do I in my current organization get involved in something that's going to really strengthen that weakness, help me either improve on my communication skills or on my business acumen, my ability to understand kind of the business impact of the product, and what have you, because I think that's a lot of times people are very technical and they're like, well, I can run this, I can be in the product side. Well, do you have the communication skills that is going to allow you to be a really successful product manager and hopefully eventually director, VP, and maybe above? So,
yeah.
So I guess I see things very much from the business mind, probably not technical enough to be a PM, but from the business, when I look at your rise, something I found really intriguing You seem to pick some really, you might not realize it, or maybe you do and recognize that your career, which has been wildly successful, a lot of it to me is a couple of very important decisions, how I see it. You found your way into small companies that no one would have ever heard of maybe at the time, but both of those companies were positioning themselves, growing and successful enough to be acquired by much larger, much more successful, big name companies in the tech space, specifically your last one,
Yeah.
which really catapulted your career. And you're not the only person I know in product who's been at the CPO level. Same thing. If I look at their resume, a lot of the in parentheses acquired by, and you're like, oh, got it. You were smart. You knew how to find the right startup. And we work with a lot of that range of startup through the companies that are starting to acquire those startups. That tends to be a big sweet spot for us. How are you picking, hey, Wiley Technologies seems to be this pretty cool opportunity that it's not just a good job or just has the salary, which
Yeah.
when we go and we talk to a candidate, we're talking a lot more about team, etc. How did you choose to go work at Wiley or go choose to work at the next one that got acquired?
Wiley, SendGrid, and GitLab all had a few things in common. One, I think they were on the right side of technical trends. So Wiley was right on the front end of a new way of developing large-scale web applications, and they were, selling picks and shovels to the companies that were building all that. So kind of a grimy infrastructure play, but every company that's doing that, that's starting to hit that wave, needs a product like it. And they were early; they were the first one. And so, while I wasn't massively technical, I could see that, and so I thought that it was the right product at the right time. I also always look for culture and leadership, and Wiley had a really cool technical founder named Lou Cerny, who went on to start New Relic and has had an amazing run. So I could tell he was going to be a good leader. They had brought in some really experienced management, and the guy who hired me had been at IBM, super senior, and I felt like I could learn a lot from that executive team. So those are my big reasons. SendGrid, pretty similar. It was an email API. It was sort of on the front end of the API wave. It also is a self-service product. So come in, swipe your credit card, don't need a big sales team. That was very early in that self-service. It was product-led growth before that term got coined. And so I really liked where they were on the front end of those two business and tech curves. I felt like there was going to be a lot of tailwind for them. And they had an amazing culture. It was branded the 4 H's: hungry, humble, happy, and honest. And you could just, and again, a really humble founder, Isaac, and two other co-founders, great guys. And they had also brought in seasoned leadership. They had brought, the CEO had stepped aside and brought in a seasoned CEO. They had a great CFO. So I felt again like the leadership would be smart, and the product was great, and they were on the right side of trends. GitLab, very similar, on the front end of DevOps. They were the first ones to think about all the things in DevOps as a single application and a single product, and I thought that was visionary and ahead of the curve. Also an amazing culture that the CEO reinforces, and they were bringing in a new round of leadership as well. So
Now now they have you, so they have amazing leadership, right? So as someone looks at, but again, it's like I look at that and I'm like, all right, so you were able to pick out a place that did email APIs back in 2013. It's like, okay, that seemed to make pretty good sense. Definitely on the front end of the wave, not on the back end, right? In the DevOps space, which is seemingly, we get like a phone call a day about, hey, we need DevOps engineer. Like it's definitely moving faster and faster and faster, and is a term that, 3 years ago, maybe not everyone knew, and it's becoming more and more just a part of the language, right? So you're finding trends early, great culture, and awesome, powerful founders and leadership teams.
yeah.
And because again, you found a way to be a part of really awesome companies, and now you're one of the leaders of a fantastic company. Tell us a little bit about GitLab. This is, kind of this is the sales pitch for you. It's like, tell us what's so amazing about GitLab, what it does, and so on.
Yeah, so GitLab is a DevOps platform, is what we call it. And so if you're an engineering team that's building software, we aim to be a one-stop shop for you. So you can plan your project kind of like you can with Jira. You can store and modify and collaborate on your source code kind of like you can with GitHub. There's continuous integration features in there for real-time testing, like something like a Jenkins might do. There's security testing built in. So as a developer, when you're writing code, you can run security and vulnerability tests real time, kind of like a Sneak might do. Then you can deploy it to production. It's called continuous delivery, kind of like a Harness might do. Then you can monitor it. You can manage packages like an Artifactory. You can monitor it like Datadog or New Relic, and so forth. And so rather than having a ton of disconnected tools for the various what we call stages of DevOps, you just have one. It's one data model. It's one place to log in. It's one way to communicate. Streamlines DevOps processes a ton. It's a lot cheaper. It increases quality of life for engineers. That's
so one-stop shop DevOps.
Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome.
There it is. There's your motto. I will take credit. One-stop shop DevOps.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah.
Makes sense. Sounds good. And what are you, from the product side, what are you most focused on? Kind of your product team and what you guys are growing.
Well, we're big now. We have about 65 people in the product org. We have 1,800 people across the whole company. We have 40 different engineering groups that work on various different parts of the product. And so I view my job as to set up the system in which our product team works. I pay more attention to that than I do the product itself, which I'm sure is going to sound strange and counterintuitive to a lot of people. But I feel like, look, we've hired 50 PMs since I started. We've hired 50 engineers or 50 designers since I started. We probably hired 400 engineers. All those people have to plug in and do great work. So if I'm not focused on what that system looks like, then it's going to be pure chaos. So I focus a lot on things that I think will help the team scale and help an individual PM do great work. So things like, how do we manage OKRs and KPIs? What's our career development framework so that people know where they are? What's our hiring system look like? How do we make investment decisions across tons of different investment opportunities? Those are a handful of things that I've focused on.
That's awesome. So I'm kind of curious. So you have a pretty big product team. You guys are hiring, you're growing, you're booming. Having 65 plus people in the product organization, I'm curious if there's like a kind of a unanimous or single thing that people typically fail at in your interview process, right? So I guess part of what we're doing, right, is trying to help coach and mentor people on how to get into the product space or how to interview or how to do all these things. I'm curious what you find is a big mistake amongst a lot of people interviewing for roles within your guys' product function.
Yeah, I don't know if there's one pattern, because as you've noted, people come up from a lot of different backgrounds. So it could be that they have never talked to customers and don't think about the need for validation. Like, have they grown up in a system where that's important? If not, that's going to be a long shot. That's a big one. Like, do you think customer? Do you talk customer? Do you think about the problem first? A lot of people want to come in and talk about the solution or the tech, and that's a big mistake. On the business front, if they're coming up from a technical background, do they kind of grok how this thing I'm doing can tie to the business outcome? That's something people tend to fall short on, particularly if they're coming from an overly technical background. And then I think a big one is communication. Can they communicate clearly and crisply? Can they write well? Because GitLab is an all-remote company, and you have to write stuff down because you're not in meetings like with your team. There are Scrum. We don't use the word Scrum team, but we use the word group. there are groups that never meet synchronously because they got somebody in Australia and somebody in Hungary and somebody else in Peru. Meeting synchronously for most groups is a rare occasion. So you have to write it all down.
That's interesting. So flip side then, right? Are there things that you see as like a unanimous yes, like something that, GitLab knows that they look for all the time where it's a automatic green light if they express X, Y, and Z throughout an interview?
Not really, because you have to, you can't just be you can't just be really great on validation, but be a terrible communicator. So you have to clear the bar on all of them. And then it's fine if, let's say it's a deeply technical role, like, focused on an API set or something like that. Maybe if they're not world-class at business skills, it's okay as long as they demonstrate an aptitude for it, and then we can train them on that. So you have to be minimally viable in all four, and the bar for that might vary depending on the type of role.
Okay. And then, I think another thing that you said a second ago is like you guys are really adamant about having like set career paths within GitLab, right? So like what are some of the things that that you do? Let's say hypothetically somebody joins your team today. What does a typical career path look like for them? And what are the things that GitLab does to help validate and ensure that they do have growth path?
Yeah, we have what we call a career development framework. And if you want to look it up, you can. Just about everything that GitLab does is published online in what we call our public handbook. And so our career development framework is out there. You can check it out. There's an individual contributor track, and there's a people manager track. And it goes from PM to senior PM to principal PM on the IC path. And then on the people manager, it's group manager to director to senior director to VP and CPO. And so we try to make it really clear what the expectations are at each of those levels. So if you're coming in as a PM, you can say, all right, here's expectations at my level. Am I meeting them? And here's what I should work on to get to the next level. And it's spelled out in pretty fine detail. The less vague you can make it, the better, so that all managers can come up with the shared understanding of what a senior PM looks like. And then there's also the people manager track, so you can see what that looks like. So if you're a senior PM and you're trying to decide between people management or IC, it's sitting right there, and you can do things to prep yourself for people management if that's what you're after. In terms of development, we have career development conversations between the manager and the employee at least once a quarter, usually every 2 to 3 months, where we'll put the normal one-on-one aside and we'll break out the career development framework, and the manager will provide updates on each of those 4 areas. And then for the managers, there's a 5th around people management, and talk about, okay, here's what you did that demonstrated or did not demonstrate capability at the expected level. So you can have that conversation about performance regularly. That helps people keep it top of mind. It helps them prioritize career development activities. And then the other thing is we've invested quite a bit in learning and development. You can go check, again, you can go search for it. There's a library of talks and books and internal training videos and such on various aspects of the 4 areas we're looking for.
So where do we find all this? So obviously where do Shane and I get it, but where does everyone, the 25 million people who are listening right now, where do they go find this handbook?
Just search for GitLab Career Development Framework and you'll find it, or GitLab Product Handbook.
Okay.
We'll get you to the main index, and then you can branch out from there. There's a ton of material.
It's awesome and interesting, and I think it really showcases your culture that that's something that's publicly available, right?
Yeah.
Like if I had to be like in the back of my head, it's like the transparency around your guys' career development is available and ready for anybody to find, and I think that speaks volumes to anything else that I could really ask.
Yeah, one of GitLab's 6 cultural values is transparency, which I don't know if I've ever seen another company where that's one of the values. And so the founder has been adamant at every turn we should publish as much as possible.
I think that's
And
great.
yeah, it's a really cool aspect of the culture.
Yeah. So this is your you get to and maybe not endorse, advertise what roles are you looking to bring on specifically in the product space that you're looking at going, these are, as we're growing, these are some very strategic, urgent, people we're looking for.
Yeah, we actually only have a handful of roles open right now. There's three different senior PM level roles available in various aspects. So you can go to GitLab jobs and find the job description and apply for it there.
Okay, so anyone who's listening who's like, hey, I got a killer background in the product space, GitLab sounds awesome, culture sounds great, leadership is amazing, the company's on the front end of that wave, in that DevOps space, awesome. So go to GitLab. Is it gitlab.com? I want to make sure.
Yeah, about.gitlab.com/jobs, I think is the
URL.
URL.
So and yeah, and I hope people hear this and then, like, again, my vision of it is people are listening and going, I want to get into product, but I also hope a lot of product people are seeing it going, these are the places that maybe I can emulate if I am a product leader and hear Scott and go, hey, I'm at the director level, he's CPO level, let me try to glean some great leadership tactics, or hey, this is a place that I would love to become a part of. As people are looking at starting to transition in careers and go, wow, GitLab's pretty cool. The leadership team's great. Culture's awesome. Remote first role, which I know some people are looking for, etc. And so GitLab's the place to go. So I'm going to go check it out.
And like transparency, I do see a lot of people that write transparency as one of their values. I don't think they live and breathe it the way that you guys are doing.
Yeah, I would venture to bet we're the most transparent company in the world.
Ooh, sounds like we're gonna have a grudge match. We'll have to find someone else.
there may be a couple others, like Buffer is well known for being massively transparent, but we're in the top 5 for sure.
There you go. So all right, so let's have some fun in the conversation to finish it up. So you live in Boulder, you've lived in San Francisco, you've lived in Kansas. Anywhere else I don't know about?
I lived in Germany for a year.
All right, so some
those have been my
international
home.
stuff. All right,
Yeah.
so you like to travel. It sounds like you like to move around. You're kind of used to that. Now
Yeah.
that COVID is hopefully gone or mostly kind of settling out of the environment, we can travel again. We can move about the world. Where do you want to go? Where is your next trip that you're like, I can't wait to go to Australia, France, wherever?
Well, this year we're already planning to go to Hawaii for a couple weeks, so looking forward to that. But we got 2 high schoolers, and when they're out of the house, we really want to take a long trip down to Australia and New Zealand.
Oh, that's right. Get rid of the kids for a minute.
That's
I got
right.
5 little kids.
That's an expensive flight. Let's unload a couple of tickets here.
It is amazing. It is amazing. If I were to just take my family just to visit you in Boulder, it's like an $8,000 week-long vacation.
Yeah.
And it really isn't all that much fun carrying 5 children on a plane. I'm just saying, it's vacation's a stretch.
5 kids, holy smokes.
Yeah, 7 to 13. So they keep us busy. So yes, I can't wait till they're gone and we get to go to Australia. All right, so Australia, Hawaii are on the bucket list. All right, so you went to KU. Are you a big basketball fan?
Huge hoops fan. Yeah, I've been following the Jayhawks since I was a toddler.
All right, so who's going to win it this year? We're in March. We got the tournaments. This is conference tournament weekend. The SEC tournament starts today. Actually starts today. I don't know when the Big 12 goes off. Big 10, I think, starts either today or tomorrow. Who's going to win it all, though, in the March Madness tournament? Who do you got for your bracket when that comes out?
I actually haven't watched. I watch every KU game. I don't watch a ton of other teams. I've heard pundits mention Gonzaga as a favorite. Love their coach and their program, so I'll go with that. I'll go with
I watched last night. I don't watch a ton. It just so happened kids didn't have a lot going on, and so my boys and I watched, the first half of the Gonzaga St. Mary's game, and Gonzaga clinched their conference yesterday, so they punched their ticket. Not that anyone was worried about them getting in, but so they will likely be a 1 seed. I could see Gonzaga pulling it off. I could see. I'd like to see it. This sounds crazy. I'd like to see a Duke run here in Coach
Yeah,
K's last year. That'd be kind of a cool. Not that I'm a big Duke fan. I'm really not.
yeah,
It just would be a nice way to end the story.
I agree.
The storybook.
The guy deserves what he got, and he's a great coach.
Yeah.
KU has a shot, but they'll have to get on a run.
They're good. KU, they're top 10 team this year, right?
Yeah, they're 6th, and they have a lot of experience on the team and some really good guard play, and they could do it. But
have you ever been to a Final Four?
No, I have not.
That should be a bucket list. When Kansas is in it, you go to the Final Four.
There you go.
That would be awesome.
Done.
All right. So last question. This is where there's a lot of judgment that's going to be based on this. So movies are important, and I think you can really tell a person's soul by what their favorite movie is. Shane is dead in the soul because his movie is terrible. But so what would you say is your favorite movie of all time?
Well, I must have a dark soul too, because mine is Pulp Fiction.
That's okay. That's a great movie.
Yeah.
That is a great. Shane's is just a terrible movie. I don't even. It was Reign of Fire. I forget what Shane said. It was something I had never even heard of.
Reign of Fire.
Well, it was Gladiator. I just happened to have seen Reign of Fire, which was somebody else in the past. Yeah, we won't name it, but it was the I think it was the CPO over at Trainual.
That's right. So all right. So Pulp Fiction is a very good movie.
I've never seen it. That's what Taylor's biggest issue is. I've never seen Pulp Fiction. There's a lot of like eclectic like top movies that everyone brags about. I think I've seen Reign of Fire, which was I think the only movie that was somebody's top favorite on the show so far that I have seen, which is
Reign of Fire. Really? I've never even heard of the thing, and he's watched that, but he hasn't seen Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, that's like Quentin Tarantino. That was the follow-up to Reservoir Dogs, and Reservoir Dogs was, some people knew about it, but once Pulp Fiction hit,
oh my gosh. It's all about time and place too. I was in I think a senior in college, and I watched that thing in a theater where beer was allowed, and it was just it was a great place to watch it.
Isn't that true? It's like it is. It's time and place. I remember seeing Jurassic Park as a kid in a theater and thinking, this is the greatest thing of all time, right? But then sometimes you watch it on a small TV by yourself and it's, just not as cool, right? So time and place, I could see that. Pulp Fiction in a theater with beer.
There's been a lot of movies like it since, but at the time it was kind of a mind-bending, interesting movie. So yeah.
All right. I like that. Put Pulp Fiction on the board. So we got Pulp Fiction. Mine is Braveheart. His is Gladiator. Gladiator is good.
Okay.
So, but it's embarrassing that he has not seen Pulp Fiction. We need to get him like a Redbox subscription or something. HBO Max. I don't know. So Scott, this was awesome. I really appreciate it. I hope everyone goes to GitLab, finds GitLab careers, or is able to check out your guys' just ultra transparency on company handbook, career development, and everything else that you guys put out there. And I think you guys do it and I use a word that has negative connotations, but come steal our stuff. Come look at what we do. And I think when people do that, it'll either make other companies in the world better, or they're going to see, hey, GitLab's a place I want to be.
Yeah.
For as much as I came here to steal stuff, this is pretty good stuff. I need to join something like this. So I think that's awesome. I hope everyone checks out GitLab, goes and checks you out, whether it's on LinkedIn or whatever, gets connected with with you on LinkedIn and GitLab on LinkedIn, and really starts to see a company that is at the front end of the wave of technology, sort of like you've always made those good decisions in your career. So again, Scott, thank you so much for joining us. We are honored to have you, and we hope to maybe we'll have you back in a year or two and see where GitLab gets to.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, it was fun.
Next in